Thank you so much, RJ, and thanks for all of our panelists. And I think just in the discussion that will follow now, I'm just so excited to get us all thinking and gearing towards our next session as well, bringing in the educators who we can't be doing one without the other, right? This activism to affect change at the standards of learning level across 3 different states, California, one of them, given the shout out. So be thinking of those relationships too as we go into this conversation. So I'd like to invite our 3 panelists up here. And just take a moment, everyone, to be taking it all in, framing some questions. And just while you're thinking about what you'd like to ask our presenters or bring into the conversation, I just again want to emphasize that these discussions and today's day of recognition around the Transcontinental Railroad is really just to frame all of us collaborating together over the next year and thinking about 2020 and bringing more folks into the conversation who we've already been in dialogue with, including groups like the Bracero Project, and thinking about so many other organizations who are doing similar types of work and how we can leverage each other's platforms. So we have about 15 minutes before we transition into the next discussion on education and policy change. But does anyone have any starting comments, questions? Great, I'm going to come back here. Maybe, Jaja, can you get the other microphone, please? I think it's behind the podium, and then we'll have more mobility. Thank you. And if you would just introduce yourself with your name and the organization you're with, if you have one, we all get to know each other.
Hi, my name is Mindy Liu. I'm with the Chinese American Museum in DC. And my question is for the 2 crowdsourcing projects that were mentioned. What strategies did you guys use to get more and more people involved as your projects got bigger and bigger? Like, what sort of marketing techniques did you use to get the word out there?
I guess we need the mic up there too.
Jaja,
thank you. That's important.
I think with one of our challenges being limited capacity of staff and volunteers, it didn't blow up that big. So, that meant it was manageable for us, right? And that those contributions, each one is very meaningful to us, so we can monitor that. And I think it's for folks, it's on their own time. We were kind of hoping in the beginning, we were just like live pinning, a bunch of everyone doing everything, right? But it was like crickets when we did that kind of call to action. If we were like, today, pin about, railroads, there'd be like crickets. Because everyone does things on their own time, right? Like, we did like webinars and things of that nature, and everyone's just like, I can only give you like, in this day and age, I can only give you 30 seconds of my attention, right? And then I'll just bookmark this to go in the middle of the night when I can't sleep, or I need to procrastinate. So it's really like being time responsive is not really a thing for us. Versus it's like when you want to, how you want to, it's on your terms. And so really that's how we respond, and that's how we encourage folks, so they don't feel the peer pressure. But if we do have excited individuals or organizations that have something, that's also we can respond to that, right? If, like we've had, with the work we do in historic preservation, if there's a threat in sight, right? Or if there's something that, researchers like, I need more information about this building, and they do a public call out. Those are time bound with deadlines to hopefully, those are the urgent calls to action. So we can do both in that way. And so our ticks of activity, we don't even care to look at them because that's not what matters to us. And that was something we had to decide is we don't respond to online like Facebook. We don't look at algorithms. We just look at the pins for the value of the pin, right? And who's contributing. If it's an individual who's never been on here or whatever. So I think we just kind of ignore those kind of digital demands.
Okay, so
For the Tenement Museum, this site actually started as a Pinterest board for a public school in Brooklyn, PS 130 for fifth graders. And I mention that to say that I think that most of the stories have come from schools and colleges and groups who have someone sort of supporting the contributors and creating their stories and posting their stories. But at the museum, we don't really do any advertising at all. So I think a lot of it has been word of mouth. And for those people who just independently decided to contribute stories, I think some of it has come from the social media post. I think some of it has come from mentioning the project on our tours and our public programs. And then I think some people might not even know it's really associated with the Tenement Museum, and they might hear through it through an organization that they trust or that they communicate with, and stories come in that way as well. Another thing that brings in stories, I don't think this brings in a huge volume of stories, but I know that Wingwood Museum uses this sort of strategy too. Sometimes people will want to donate an object to the museum's collection, and we don't really have much space for objects and things like that, so we encourage people to contribute to your story, our story, and then from there we can sort of make a decision if we want to actually accept that object, or maybe the fact that it's on the website is good.
Thank you.
I'm Eric Hong from the Music of Asian American Research Center. My question is, have you ever had to take things down or not approve certain objects, and what are your criteria for doing that?
So yes, we have. Luckily, we don't, we read through all the stories that come, but it's important to us that we don't change them at all or edit them, and we have to be the voice of the storyteller. And it's very, very rare that we get any sort of spam submissions. We have, and this is a challenge of the project too, as I just mentioned, some people don't really realize what they're submitting to, so we work to be more clear about the privacy measures. And some students, for example, maybe were in a college class and submitted a document that was sensitive. They didn't realize what was happening, so they have contacted us, and of course we take it down right away. But we really, that's not a good situation. We're trying to work so that it's very clear that this is something that's going to be public, so people use that to choose what they share on the site.
We are fortunate to be hosted by History Pen, which is another organization in London, so it's an international company. And there's actually someone in London every time a pin comes in, she comes to sleep. So yeah, there's one person. He is very small, but there is something in each pin. And so as it happens, and then also even when comments are done, there is a review of that. Not just of anything that may be derogatory, but if it's like totally in the wrong location, or one of the fields that you contribute is totally incorrect, or like a comment is like, you're a Japanese American, is American, then they revise it. But most of the time, yeah, there's someone monitoring, fortunately for us, from our host site.
And I'm too new to have to take anything down, but I will say sometimes I've had to put new things up. I had met a woman who started a foundation in honor of her father, who had been murdered in the South, and she had literature that just tells his story. And I was like these are just little snippets, right, that don't capture the humanity of somebody. So I was like, can I use this story of your father and put it, honor him that way? So I've added things.
Any other questions, comments, ideas for 2020? Because remember, like in the spirit of all that everyone's doing, Ted has long been describing this vision and this goal of showing the institutional strength of all the storytellers, both individual, museum, cultural institutions, in a way that's accessible, reaching more audiences. and creating more conversations. So that's our goal here with this conversation. Does anyone have any final questions? We just have a few more minutes for this panel. Now. Well, Richie, you already said, oh, good, thanks, Katie.
Hi, I'm Katie Warner. I'm with the VII Education Project. RJ, I have a question. Cool site. Who's writing the content? Is that you? Are you coming up with all that, or do you have? Are you working with teachers? Are you working with historians?
That's a great question. The Monroe Work site, I did write myself. That was like a passion project. But the idea here is that there will be many, many authors on this site. So, in fact, it could be an organization. It could be, the Bridgeport African American Community Center doing the history of Bridgeport. That community there. It could be, Dr. Annalisa Cox, who did research on, the Great Northwest. And it could be like a project by her, like scholarly, and I by no means want to write the entire history of people of color and the stories that are being suppressed. I want people who are experts in it to be writing it. So that my hope is that people own the work that they do. They just allow it to be seen on Flint Talk History, or allow it to be found on Flint Talk History.
Okay, and I think kind of in that spirit, I think we're just at the end of our time in this panel, but I think this conversation can continue on in a really great way as we get ready for our next panel. So if I can have the panelists, well actually, first, let's give a round of applause to these panelists. So thank you so much for being here, and there's going to be great